And welcome once again to another edition of the Shadow Gallery. I am, as always, your host, James Donnelly. And guess what time it is? I know you've waited for it. The clock's been turning, and now it's time for new comics, bitches! So, well, we're actually going to do some stuff from 2 weeks ago first, because I did a very abridged review then, because this was all about Secret Six and Punisher and so those seem to be the important ones, but they weren't certainly the only ones, and they weren't the only important ones either. So let's talk about what we did get from that week. And try and keep this somewhat brief. Batman: Night of Vengeance, number 3 of 3. I have to say that this, while to me had a very, I think, inauspicious start, really had a hell of a second issue, followed up by a really powerful third and final issue by Eduardo and the other guy, by Brian Azzarello and Eduardo Rizzo. Anywho. Can't believe I forgot that. Anyway, so we had the big reveal last, in the second issue that Martha Wayne was actually this universe's Joker, and that Gordon, basically Jim Gordon, had just been killed by her before she basically tricked him into shooting one of the Dent twins that were kidnapped by her. When Batman gets there, the child turns out to be, not okay, but not dead. And while he's dealing with, kind of reviving her, helping her out, he, of course, flashback finally to the night in which the robbery occurred and Bruce was killed. Now, as it turns out, Thomas might have been shot. I don't know. That's never really very clear. But Martha was not. Martha was definitely not shot. But Bruce was, and of course, they watch as Bruce dies. He's trying to save him. Thomas is. Martha seems to be just kind of frozen with fear, and one has to wonder: okay, would the regular universe's Martha Wayne have been that, scared, freaked out? So obviously, this totally mentally unhinges her, and it definitely unhinges Thomas. And they both kind of experience their own kind of descent into a madness of some sort. Thomas ends up, he's trying to help Martha get over it. He wants her, of course, to smile more often. That he misses her smile, and so he, in order to help make her smile, Thomas believes the best thing to do would be to kill the thief, Joe Chill, who happily makes an appearance here. He is, he's still the robber, he's still the killer in the same universe. Instead of shooting him up with something, as Thomas had planned, he just basically beats him to death with his bare hands. Then comes home to Martha to tell him that he did it, and finds out that she has taken a razor blade or a razor or something and cut her cheeks here so that she's smiling. It's a little bit of a riff, obviously, on the Joker in the Dark Knight film. So that was a little, but still it works. And they have their kind of grand fight between the two of them, but it's not so much of a physical fight as a mental one, which is and an emotional one, which is very powerful and actually pretty moving. And then he, Thomas kind of, I don't know if this has to be after, at least briefly after meeting Barry Allen in the Flashpoint regular series, where he basically talks about kind of an alternate universe where Bruce lives and they both died. And this seems to be appealing to Martha for a bit, until Thomas tells her that he would follow in his footsteps, and she thinks, she says, he'll be a doctor, and he's like, no, and she understands that, no, I don't want my son to be you as the Batman. It was really well done. Like I said, I didn't really care for the first issue except for the art. Eduardo Rizzo is always a really good artist. But Azzarello really picked up the pace, I think, in the right direction, moving it to more of an emotionally based story rather than, learning about, okay, well, this is what this universe is like for the Waynes. Obviously, there needs to be some sort of, establishment. So, but second issue was absolutely great. This issue, not as good, but still really good. Again, one of the few Flashpoint tie-ins that I've actually liked. Batman 80-page giant. It was $7.99, but it was worth it, because of the different stories that they had to tell. There's 7 different stories within the 80-page giant. Some of them are, Bruce Wayne stories. A couple of them seem to be, a couple of them are definitely Dick Grayson stories. At least, one is definitely Dick Grayson, and one is, it's the uniformed, not the bat, like raised symbol, but the flat symbol. You know what I'm talking about. Now, there's, you have the first story that deals with the question of addiction. Because it's Bruce being kind of a philanthropist for a young drug addict, trying to help her out. But at one point, Alfred points out that maybe Bruce is an addict himself and that he's addicted to being Batman, which is a really interesting question in a short story. Now, there's a number of different creators, not too many not really any name creators, but still, a pretty well-rounded book. The second one was interesting, which was basically kind of a military experiment in which basically soldiers don these cool exosuits, and they go to Gotham City and they commit a crime just so they can confront Batman. And it was an interesting idea, and there's some neat little moments that were in that story as well. The third story, which was kind of my favorite, just from the standpoint that it took, is it's called Unspoken, and it's a Batman Catwoman story. And there is actually no dialogue, no thought bubbles or anything like that. It's just completely silent, as it were. And but it works. The art the art and the relation is powerful enough to tell the story without any words, which is why that really stood out. And it was just a really nice story. There's nothing really particular to get into, because at points it was a little hard to follow, but you get the gist. The story that I really didn't like was just another story, which was basically about Victor Zsasz, and it basically a Harley Quinn ripoff. Zsasz has his own type of Harley Quinn. It's someone that wants, it's a woman that, a woman psychiatrist that is obsessed with Zsasz and wants to be like him. And, they're about to bring down Batman, and then, of course, a huge fight breaks out between Zsasz and this woman as to who gets to kill Batman. And, of course, she dies, Zsasz goes back to Arkham. I guess all is well in the world. But it just, I didn't like that whole kind of, this is the, kind of this Harley Quinn ripoff thing. Then there's another story, which is my second least favorite, which was basically the Riddler versus the Question, while Dick Grayson is on this Jeopardy-like show. it just seemed kind of thrown together, and it's like, okay, this is a cute idea on paper, to have the Riddler face off against the Question. For the record, again, I really don't like this new Riddler approach that they're taking. I really, really, really enjoyed him when he was, the kind of morally ambiguous private eye. Another one that I really enjoyed, the sixth story is about basically a would-be super criminal who calls himself the Falcon. Basically, he from his childhood he wanted to be a supervillain. He lived in Gotham City. He actually he commits crimes so he can end up in prison and learn from other criminals how to be a good criminal, learn from the mistakes they made. He interviews them, he studies them, so on and so forth. Takes a very clinical approach to it, and then has basically part of his brain removed, the part that feels fear, so that he he kind of almost takes out Scarecrow, almost kills him. I don't know if they're adopting I don't know if the comic book is actually kind of co-opting the look of the Nolan verse Batman look for Scarecrow in the comics now. I mean, I always thought it was a really cool look in there, but I kind of like the look that had already been established for the Scarecrow. But that's present here, so that was an interesting story. And then the final story is kind of this kind of touching story about this couple who are frustrated with each other and with the fact that they have this young autistic child, this young boy who their child who is autistic, and the husband can't seem to do anything right by the wife can't seem to do anything right by the husband, and he's kind of reading comic books, and then for some reason he's attacked by Solomon Grundy. And then Batman comes to rescue him, and there's this knockdown, drag-out fight between Batman and Grundy. Batman ends up winning the day, and of course, the first word that comes out of the autistic boy's mouth is Batman. And then, the parents are pleased with each other again. It's, a nice ending. It's a little, it's kind of on the weak sauce end of things, but it was an I guess a happy ending, which is just not something I see too much in a Batman book. So that was again that was it was worth it to read those stories, to have that. It could have been a little stronger overall. I think they could have used some more current creators, or some maybe bigger name creators, not necessarily bigger name, but just better writers, better artists, instead of just kind of throwing all of these writers and artists into this kind of slapdash comic. But one way or the other, it was still pretty good. I'm just going to do the quickest review you ever saw me do of Flashpoint, which is Flashpoint number 4. This was almost entirely forgettable, aside from the the killing of the young boy who seems to head up the Shazam people, and and the very end with the Reverse Flash. It was artistically, it was pretty strong. From a writing standpoint, I expect so much more out of Jeff Johns. I just really do. I know a lot of you have subscription services and whatnot, but if you do have a local comic store, get over there and get this. Hero Comics 2011. There's a lot of good creators in here. Neil Gaiman, Sam Keith is artist. There's a lot of really cool stories about how the hero, because this is from the Hero Initiative, and it's $3.99. That's not a lot to donate to the Hero Initiative, because a lot of good things and a lot of those stories are in this comic about how the Hero Initiative has helped comic creators in their lives. So stick around after the jump. We're going to come back with some more stuff. So stay tuned.